salaries for all department heads, union and non-union groups. And also approved an additional allocation of extra funds for the health department from MDHHS. And that's about all I've got. It's pretty standard stuff that we do next year.
Thank you.
So, public time, if you're interested in speaking at public time for items, obviously, other than what's on the agenda, we ask that you raise your hand. The supervisor will identify you to come forward, come to the podium, and introduce yourself, and then limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. We have a timer to help you time yourself, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Karen Brashenko, Village of Metamora. So what I'm handing out, these guys are just getting the tenants you guys signed. I'm going to give you also some complaints with the points on it. You get to sign one, so officially filed. So one of them is about the way that the last planning commission meeting was conducted. It actually seemed like a nice guy, but it is not okay in public discourse to allow certain people to just keep interrupting.
Why do they keep doing it?
Just like you're interrupting me now, you don't get to do it.
like
There are rules and there should be fairness, all right? But I want to point out, these are the principles of governance that the 5 of you up here on the board signed. They talk about ethics, they talk about fairness, impartiality, and man, it is really hard to see that anyone is fulfilling these, or many of you are fulfilling them, or even trying to fulfill them. Because my main question these days is, can anyone do business here who isn't friends or family of the ruling folks? Because as I said in that ZBA meeting on the 19th, which is the lengthy complaint in here, you know, I had been through so many, a huge bunch, and this is just what I got to. I have 3 jobs. I didn't have that much time to go through all of the minutes for all the years, but party barn after party barn after party barn after party barn was turned down by the Planning Commission. And the previous planner told people we don't do party barns here in this township. And then the Best family comes, and the Best family has an idea, and I actually don't oppose their idea, I oppose how it was carried out. And just imagine my shock sitting there, and Traci's presiding. Traci, you were the neighbor of these folks and their cousin. And Traci was put on the ZBA by her father, who voted her onto the ZBA. It's a quasi-judicial board. It matters that we don't use nepotism and we don't use favoritism. No, I've got a lengthy complaint that I spent a lot of time in there. We have a whole page of conflicts of interest of yours, Mr. Bass, a whole page of conflicts of interest of Traci. Because not only are we relatives and neighbors, we recommend each other's businesses. We endorse each other. I mean, there are 4,000 people in this township. Can we not find some folks that represent a wider swath in that tiny little area where the ZBA is? You know, it's just, I gotta tell you, it's feeling more like feudalism than democracy sometimes around here, and I don't like feeling that way. I want to go back to feeling like this is a democratic process. So please go through and read this. I spent a lot of time doing it. I added sources that I hope you all are reading, so that you can keep these tenets that you signed. Thank you.
I won't say no. Anybody else? Yes.
Susan Huff, 5047 Blood Road. I'm 67 years old, no spring chicken. It's been a long time since I've had anyone suggest I behave, which is what George suggested when I sat down tonight. He said, behave. You don't behave when you don't get your way. I expect my township elected officials and appointed officials to operate the meetings in accordance with parliamentary procedure. I expect them to be respectful of all of us, whether they like us or not, whether we're Susans and Karens. It doesn't matter. I watched your face, Ann, while Karen was speaking up here, and it was just very disrespectful. I'm so sorry. I'm concerned also about last week's planning commission meeting. Parliamentary procedure was just right out the window. I usually try to stick to my 3 minutes, but there was so much interruption that I finally just said, I can interrupt too. And that's what you're driving it to. You're driving it to a mob mentality when you don't stick with parliamentary procedure. At that meeting, the call of the public hearing was changed. At the previous planning commission meeting, Jason Ball said you cannot change the call of the public hearing at the meeting. They wanted to go for conditional rezoning. He said it will have to be renoticed. I wanted to ask a simple question about procedure, and I was denied. But I'm still questioning whether you can change the call of a public hearing. Instead of being 01 to be 2 with conditions, it became remaining 01 and having uses placed on it. That's special land use, that's a variance. It's not conditional rezoning. Conditional rezoning changes the zoning of the parcel, but I couldn't get that question answered. You know, the ordinances that we have here say that after the planning commission reviews these things, they will provide a report of their findings to the board. I'm assuming there was no report given because I asked Sue about it earlier today and she said there were no findings of fact. So I'm assuming that you just voted, got a tie that didn't break, and sent it on without any findings of fact. The planning commission's job was to find fact and make a recommendation, not just to sit in a meeting and listen to people either say I'm for it or against it. It was to evaluate what that particular request was to be. And if you're not sure if I'm right about that, the planning committee or the planning commission minutes do say that the property would stay 01 zoning, and that just one use would be applied, and that is not a conditional zoning. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate being offered the respect that every community member should receive.
Anybody else? All right, fire department.
We had 13 fires, 15 medicals, 3 PIs, 1 meeting, 4 trainings, and 3 work details. Our truck that we ordered is here in Michigan. They've had it for a couple weeks, and they're adding the additional equipment and shelving that was ordered with it. I went over last week and dropped off one of our stove baskets to make sure it can fit. The truck's looking good. They're looking at delivering that truck the week of the 27th to the 29th. Also on that, the DDA also donated $50,000 towards the purchase of that truck. That's all I have.
Thanks, Doug. All right, police business.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For October 2023, we took 128 complaints from the department and 74 traffic stops were reported. No burglaries again, which is great. We had a female report her T-Mobile account was hacked on Roadview Drive, and on Brower Road, an owner reported had several sections of cedar fencing stolen from his property. There are no suspects on that. We really didn't have anything else for the month drunk driver. Our accidents are up, so deer running around, so people be careful when you're driving around, especially going home tonight. 32 accidents tonight, only 5 regular accidents, 22 were car gear, and 5 injury accidents. And the other thing I have, we are going to be losing one of our part-timers in the next couple of months. He's going to be fading away. But we're going to have to replace that position, and we had a gentleman that posed an interest who was an employee before. His name is Jeremy Keogh. He's been a police officer for about 15 years on a part-time status. More like one of the other part-timers here. He has another full-time job. He does it kind of as something he likes to do as a hobby. So I would request that we hire him. He'll be a good asset to the department. We had him for his good then, so I'd get that from you.
Make a motion to,
His name is Jeremy Keogh. Keogh?
I'll make a motion to put Jeremy back on as a part-time, in the next few months here.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have.
Thank you, Dave. All right, township business. Rezone. From local office to BT. Condition.
So, do we, I'm assuming some of you people are here to discuss it or would like to state, I'm not sure who's here that wants to speak on it, that'd be great. Are you
Yeah, I'm Julie Bird.
I didn't know you, so
Yeah.
welcome. You want to give a few minutes to talk to the
Yeah,
audience,
am
talk to the board?
Am I limited to 3 or?
No, you can
Okay,
speak.
Okay,
It's fine.
all right. So I brought my business plan with me. So, and I know specifically you had some questions last week, and I was really trying to follow the meeting protocol, which didn't allow me to speak at that point. And I also apologize to all the neighbors that were here when I did not speak. I just really felt like intimidated, honestly, at that point, and like I should be quiet. And so so I brought that, and then I just kind of verbally wanted to go through that so that everyone can hear what I have, the work that we've done to kind of put this together. And I probably won't read it word for word, but I do think I would like to hit on especially some of the points that Ann brought up last week. And so the business would be run by myself and my business partner, David Zick. If you could raise your hand, Dave, yeah. Dave and I have known each other for 17 years now, I think. In the work that I did, I worked at Michigan State University for 15 years as a major gift officer there. And Dave had the, I don't know if you would call that the detriment of being in my portfolio or the benefit of being in my portfolio, but he was someone who was very supportive of the initiatives at Michigan State. So what we would be looking to do would be a small upscale special event venue. The hours of this would be by appointment, but with booking hours not to ever exceed midnight. Last time there were a lot of questions from residents about how we would enforce that. There will always be a full-time staff member on the grounds when any rental is taking place. That's actually part of the package that the client receives, is to have a full-time coordinator there on site that night. So when the lights come on at 11:15, 11:30 and the music is shut off and you begin to be ushered out, I can assure you that you will be ushered out. It will not continue because I have a family to get home to at midnight. And so that is, it's not, my grandpa was a Lions Club member, and I have all respect for the Lions Club that you could ever have, but it's very different than renting out a hall in which there's not someone there that is supervising, mitigating damages to your own property, but also making sure that you're a good neighbor to everyone there. And I heard you all last week, like I heard you loud and clear, and I felt that I owed it to each of you in my heart to go out and try to talk to you for the weekend. So I don't want to get emotional, but I did my best to try to talk to each of you. I appreciate each of you that listened to me, and we were able to, I think, some of us to find common ground and to at least understand how important it is to me that I'm operating in a way in which makes you proud and not angry, and that you feel that your life is not being disrupted. So I know Ann had said a few things last week about, there's other places doing this, and why do we need, and it wasn't just you, but why do we need it was picking on you, it's the only one here, but why do we need another one of these? And I completely get that. And I have conducted a mountain of research on this, and I've worked, as you can see on the front of this plan, I've worked with the Small Business Development Center that runs the I-69 corridor, runs out of Kettering University. And so Harry Blecker there was my consultant and is my consultant still that I work with on all of this. And he said, part of the business plan is going through and determining the overall feasibility of the project from a financial standpoint, from a location, from the need. And I will tell you, I used 3 different comparative facilities within a 25-mile radius of my home, which is in Davison. So I used Creekside Event Barn, which is in Goodrich. I used Birchview, which is in Linden. And then I used Pine Tree, which is up in Flushing. Now, these are all the same type of facility. They're all someone that has an on-site coordinator there. They are all set up to, their main clientele is usually probably weddings, I would say, but it is also runs into corporate events, family reunions, things of that nature. And what I found in my research unilaterally was that each of these places, and if you go to their social media and you look at what they're doing, they are all booked out by 1 to 2 years. Now, I went as far as to delve in further and actually reach out to these places and go and tour these places as a prospective client, but I did not also to do it. And they are, indeed, they are booked out, and it is mostly for weddings. It is typically weekends, so it is usually a Friday or Saturday or Sunday event, but they do each night separately. And they are, like I said, they're extensively booked. They're booking into 2025 and beyond at this point. And so I know that need is there. Plus, just in my talking to family and friends and people in the community, and even I did go and meet with Davison Township first because that is where I live. I went and met with Matt Place, who's their building department, their head of their building department, to talk to him about, I live on 11 acres and I back up to my parents' farm that's been in our family for 140 years. I approached them about what if I could potentially do this at our place. Sorry, Mom. And they said there's absolutely no way that we will ever allow you to have this on agricultural property. Like, you have to be adjacent to current commercial or directly across the street. We won't consider anything else. And so I said, okay, thank you. And we looked through the entire map of the township, and the only area is the Irish Road corridor. And the piece of property that they had for sale was $305,000 immediately next to the railroad track, where I could just see the train coming through and blowing the horn and whatnot. And so I said, that's probably not an option for me at this point. So then I went to Lapeer Township, and I met with Scott Jarvis, their township supervisor there. And Scott said to me, we would love to do this. He said, we need this here. He said, everyone in my office's kids are getting married right now, and they're going to Gaylord and East Lansing. And he said, you'd have to find the right piece of property. So he told me that M24 was looking to be rezoned by the end of the year to look along M24. So that's exactly what I did. So I will say that the piece of property that's really nice along M24 that's not part of that incoming complex is 25 acres up there. You see the big yellow for sale signs up there. And it's 25 acres, and the gentleman that's selling it is asking $3.5 million for it. So $3.5 million makes this project definitely not feasible for me. And I continued. I came out and drove this corridor all winter looking for something available that might fit. There's a small sign in a wooded area for 7 acres. It was $95,000, but when I called, it had already been pulled from the market. The sign is old. And so I did look extensively in other areas, and in doing so, I ended up getting in touch with Sam Moore, who is the executive director of Lapeer County's Development Corporation. And I said, Sam, are you aware of anywhere? I didn't want to go towards Flint. I wanted to move at least Davison this way. It didn't feel right to me to go that way. And so I said, is there anything out there that you can tell me about? So he said, well, there's the ice complex up there. And I said, way too big, and it looks like it's kind of falling apart to me just from the road, and a lot of money. And he said, well, he's like, there's this place down in Metamora that is a really nice property. And he said, you should drive by and see what you think. So on April 11th of this year, I got my mom in the car, and we went and drove past it. And I thought to myself, you live in a beautiful area. You do. You live in a beautiful area. It's a beautiful piece of property. I'm into really ornate, ethereal gardens. I wish I could plug you into my head so you could see what I've done at my house. I take such pride in beautifying a piece of property. And so I saw that place, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, it's my vision. Like, I can see this. I can see it repainted. I can see the exterior, the gardens. I can see this. So, I mean, it's vivid to me. And that was when I finally reached out to Chris, whose name is on the property as broker, and arranged to have a walkthrough for myself and Dave. And we went there, and we were really impressed with how well they have upkept not only the exterior, but also the interior, the mechanical workings, everything. I mean, they've done, it's unlike most properties that have been vacant for any period of time. Like, the Mercinos have kept it like it's being occupied tomorrow. And so, in doing all of this, I worked through the cash flow projections extensively. And I have some in here, but I have a much more expansive worksheet if you're interested in seeing that. Because I needed to know, like, this is going to be how I support myself and my children. I am doing this largely on my own. And I'm investing the money that I have put away for years and years and years toiling in MSU. And I'm putting it on the line because I believe in this so strongly, and because in looking through all of the projections, I know, and in reaching out to each of those other facilities and seeing what their bookings are exactly and getting all of their pricing, which I also have in here, I knew that beyond a reasonable doubt that I could be successful in this. Successful enough to support myself and my children. And so, and also while doing so, realize my dream. Maybe I won't have to always work for someone else. So, with that being said, I don't want to bore you to death by reading all through this, but that is, I meant what I said. I did not go out for show. I went out this last weekend because if I am going to be here, I cannot be surrounded by people that hate me. I need them to understand that I am a human and that I am more than willing to work with everyone and have my cell phone number and my personal email and call me if there was ever anything already happening there. I want you to. Like Dave said to me the other day, he said, you know, if I had a neighbor with a light shining through my window at night and I never said anything, I could sit there and get upset about it, or I could just say, hey, the light's shining through my window and I really don't like it. And then they can have that opportunity to shut it off. And if I am here, I meant it. I intend to be the best possible neighbor that I can be. And there's things I think, like the screen of trees, absolutely, we put that in writing that we want to keep that there and maintain that. I think there can be more. I think that there can, I stood there on people's property over the weekend and I looked at it from their place and I said, you know, there are gaps there. And we could probably fill those gaps with some more spruce. You know, I'm not opposed to looking at the possibility. I don't know what the zoning ordinances are completely yet, but of a fence. A lot of folks last week were really concerned about people potentially coming out and walking through their neighborhoods and whatnot, and that's the absolute last thing that I want. So if there was an opportunity to enclose at least two sides of it there along the roads with a fence, I think that's a good idea. If everyone was, if that would make people happier, as well as if I could potentially invest in a sign for the end of the drive that said that this is a private drive and there's I don't know if we go as far as no trespassing, but private drive, no outlet, I think could help potentially with people driving up there. I heard a lot from the folks that I visited with over the weekend about, I didn't know that they completely maintain that road, that they paid dues to each other to maintain that road. The road is beautifully maintained. It really is. It looks like professionally graded, better than any public road I've been on. I can see why you take so much pride in it. Because it's beautiful and it's serene. And I mean, it looks like the homes are built from somewhere in Estes Park, Colorado back there. And I also I gave the example of my property backs up to a 20-acre horse farm. And so I know there's a huge new neighborhood on the other side of it. There's a bunch of new condos going up. I know that there's a super high risk that someday that horse farm will become the neighborhood. That barn will fall into disrepair, people will get out of horses, whatever, and that will be a neighborhood. And I told everyone this weekend, I will be doing the exact same thing you are doing. I will be going to these meetings and ensuring that what I have right now is protected. So I get it. And if you have any questions for me, yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So is the, so you're talking about hours of operation not to exceed midnight.
Yes.
Is the venue going to be all inside or potential outside as well? Or is it, I'm trying to understand, will it expand outward so that would include more noise, more, potential?
The intention is to, so that's another thing that's in here that I should mention. And so the way that the building's set up currently is it's an L. The front of the building is 2 big classrooms. Each of those would be made, one would be made into a bridal suite, one would be made into a groom suite. Then there's an office, and then over to next to the office is the break room. The office would become my office. The break room would become a food prep area, but there would be no industrial kitchen there. So caterers would come in and organize their things, but there would never be like the need for there's a range in there that's just a standard home range.
You're not answering this question.
I'm getting to it. About the,
All you have to do is say outdoor weddings,
oh,
indoor celebration.
yes, so, thank you, Dave. Dave is, yeah, you can see why we're partners. And so, but I would be looking to do eventually, before we open, a 2,500 square foot addition roughly, that would be within the current footprint of the building. So how it's an L, it would be within that footprint. And so I hired the original architect that worked on this, which was Gary Courier, and he told me that it was always intended for that to be a gym addition to the building. And that's why the well, the septic, everything is not within that. So that would then be so within the current footprint, we would have that portion. We would also knock down a couple of walls inside to add to that space as well. But then the only exterior portion of it is going to be in the summertime to occasionally have one of the, or at the will of the client, to have the wedding ceremony itself during the daytime to take place outside. So in the wintertime, of course, it would be inside. We would remove the chairs, etc., and then bring them back in. But during the summer, it would be ideal to be able, there's actually, I don't know how close all of you have looked at the back area, but there's already like a circle of pines that already exist up closer to the building there that could be really planted beautifully and made into a really nice outdoor space for that.
So I just want to make sure I clearly understand. The intent is outdoor wedding, which is a ceremony, no bands, no loud music, no partying. Indoor would be the engagement, partying, bands, dancing.
Indoor would be the sound system and whatnot, yes. And then I've also spoke with the builder about exactly the steps that we would take to mitigate sound so that it is contained to the building itself.
Okay. And how the plan to mitigate exterior parties, huddling up in cars, partying, I mean, is the intent to have security there?
Yes.
To make sure that doesn't occur, so there's no disruption to people who live nearby?
Most of these facilities operate with one person there in the evenings, but I would definitely be open to an additional person just for security to walk the grounds and be continually checking, and also checking Lindsley Drive. I thought I think I could probably get a camera set up just for the drive to make sure that there was never overflow parking in there, as well as include that in the contract itself. Like when you come here and park in your guest park, the expectation is you are on the grounds at all times. You are not to leave the grounds. I have neighbors, and they deserve their privacy.
Is there adequate parking?
As of right now, no, there's not. But in the site plan that I submitted, there is a parking addition that would go on to the very back of the current lot. It's kind of a cutout right now around the dumpster. Instead, it would kind of like within the current footprint of the current parking lot would go over, and I think it adds like 3 or 4 spaces after that. But it's still all within the property. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, well, we'll keep those and read through them, and I hope I was able to to answer some of those questions. And again, I apologize for not going into this last week, and I should have mustered up my courage and done so. Thank you.
So is there anyone here that would like to speak? I mean, I want to open it up if somebody wants to come forward and have, share comments or in support or against. I guess I'd like to hear Sue.
Hello. Susan Huff, 5047 Blood Road, and it would have been so lovely at that meeting last week if Julie had been asked to make that presentation, but she was totally overlooked. We heard from Joe, we heard nothing else except public comment, and a lot of people's emotions were running high for the same reasons Julie just pointed out. This is their home, and they didn't have any information about what was actually going to go on in there. I'm not even sure everybody on the planning commission really thoroughly had an understanding, or there might have been a different outcome to the planning commission meeting. One of the things I heard that people were concerned about was the residential aspect of their home. And I did grab these 2 pages out of the master plan, and it does indicate the property to the south, right across the road, as becoming commercial. It indicates the property beyond that as becoming light industrial. So obviously the town center of Metamora, it's going to come down Dryden Road. That's the only logical place for it to go. I think it's really nice that there's a possibility that we could have a public use building there. Civic Center would have been great, like mentioned in the master plan, but I don't think the township had any interest in purchasing the property, I'm assuming, because it's been listed for 2 years. And so I doubt the township is looking at putting in a civic center there, so at least this would be something available to the public. It would not be commercial, it would not really, in the true sense, as far as people coming and going, it wouldn't be industrial, which is not really what's going to happen across the road. And yes, I'm in favor of it.
Anyone else?
3865 Lindsley Drive, Matthew Yorks. Calling basically to say that I say a hard no. Thank you. You also should have a letter from Tim McDonough that should be read.
Yeah. We all have that here.
Maureen Hurd, 3821 Mills Road, very hard no, as always. Thank you.
What was your name? I'm sorry.
Maureen Hurd, H-U-R-D.
Ivan Galvin, 3830 Miles Road, it's still a no for me.
What, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Ivan Galvin, 3830 Miles Road.
Well, Fire, 3885 Winsley Drive, hard no as well.
So can I always get in trouble because I ask so many questions, so sorry. Hard no, I mean, is there, I know you well, because I've been to the fire. Hard no, but is there anything we can do to put constraints, limits on the activity to make it a yes?
Well, how's this? I look at things as a building standpoint, and I look at 75. You have I-75 and they put a brick wall up to keep that noise from coming over. I think that if something like that was to happen to keep people from coming over plus the noise, it'd probably be a yes. But unfortunately, those trees aren't going to keep somebody like Ivan's house that is right next to the property, right behind the property, that's still going to be able to hear it. So, there's a lot of things that would have to happen for me to say yes. Unfortunately, the property's zoned office. When I bought the property, it was zoned office, not knowing that it would ever change, not knowing that it would even be considered a change.
Right.
So with that being said, I would anticipate it to still be office. That's why I bought where I bought. It's in the country. It's not in the village. It's not in the city of Lapeer. We're in the country. It's nice and quiet there. We enjoy our quietness.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I got something to add to that. I did have the pleasure of speaking with Lisa over the weekend, and actually I happened to be working outside, and she walked up and she said, wow, there's some extensive equipment over here, and it raised a whole new concern. It brings people to the area who you don't know who these people are. You know, yeah, they're at a wedding, but they could wander off on my property, on Matt's property, Ivan's property, down the road. I know Matt runs a business out of his house. I run a business out of my house. He parks his car there. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. Regardless, business or not, we have valuable items on our property that raises a concern. You know, right now, I think they just went over the police report. They said there's no break-ins this month or whatever. Well, they open this up, people start looking into things, you know. Somebody goes, oh, I see this over there, we'll come back after this wedding and this and that. And it opens up kind of a can of worms. It brings more people to our properties than we want. And I think part of the reason we moved out here is for that piece of land. So that's an addition to that.
I honestly think that it will impact the value of our homes as well. And I live down Mel's Road a little bit, and I can stand on my deck and I can hear people from Cascadon hooting and hollering all night long on the weekend. So I mean,
You're the boss, I'm just a treasurer.
Juanita Ballinger, 4126 South of Pier Road. I think this facility sounds like a good idea. I think it's not a fly-by-night deal. She's willing to go with whatever constraints you have. I live across from Cascadon. We have a Dollar General. We have a Taco Bell going in. I have Harmon propane tank where they fill their tanks and everything. In the 25 plus years we've lived there, I can probably less than a handful of times have heard Cascadons, and they can whoop it up too. Do I hear from the Dollar General? I hardly hear them even building the Taco Bell. It just depends, maybe the wind or something. I've got trees, but I'm still up. I can hear the traffic highway, but I would like to see this go through. I think it's a good idea. The community needs it. The venues are booking up. And it's better than seeing a vacant building go here. And we have a good police force to protect you.
Anyone else?
Do you need me to go up to the podium, or is there a stand here? Which would you prefer?
No, she can stand.
Come on up.
We paid for that podium, we've already used it.
Do I need to announce myself and my address?
I don't know you.
Right. Service Metamora Church, 3865 Lindsley Drive. Like we said at the Planning Commission, I think my biggest concern is the value of my home going down. I was very happy that you came over and you spoke to us. And like I said, I totally understand, and I hope that if it does go through, that you hold true to what you have said, as I will, all right? But I also would be remiss if I did not come up here and tell you my concerns, which we talked about. The value of my home going down. I'm concerned about the noise. I'm concerned about the traffic, people parking on our road. It's a private road. We maintain it ourselves. I'm concerned about the people wandering, things coming up missing, people showing up in my window, you know, people when they're drunk. We've all been there. We've done things that we wouldn't normally do. Basically, the security in my own home. I just wanted to address a couple of things that were said, that Dan Miller, sorry, that he said. He said something about that he has an event center in the back of his yard. Well, Dan also has quite a few acres of woods between his. Mine, I'm looking directly at it. It's instead of acres, it's like feet. And then he said something about why wouldn't we do it if we okayed for it to be on a residential, where this is the office building. Well, talking about, Ricky's, is down at the end of a road, and there's acres and acres of property there, and it's his property, and it's his family's property, where this isn't. This is a little bit of a different situation. And I think that's about it. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. So there are other things I was going to say, but I can't remember.
You did great. So how do we address the parking? If there is parking on the road, is that something we can enforce?
Yeah, you can tow them.
Sorry?
Get a tow truck and get them out of there.
So we can enforce people parking on that road and say, you know,
If they're a road hazard,
we can put up no parking signs or.
You have to put up a private road sign.
It's a private road.
private road, all I need is a complaint from a person on the private road.
Okay.
Yes.
Karen Racino, 4491 Jordan Drive. And I thank you all for, excuse me, for listening to everybody, giving everybody the chance to speak. And that's one of the great things about this country, we can all stand forward and speak. I know that there's a lot of emotions on this whole issue. And I will say that I think that a lot of it is fear of the unknown. And it's not being thought of logically, it's being thought of more emotionally. The noise factor, I can guarantee you, I was in that building when we had an alarm system go off that was ear piercing. It would have killed you to stay in there. It was a defunct alarm system, and I had to go outside to talk on the phone, and you couldn't hear the alarm outside. So we're talking something shrill and high, not music. It's a block building, concrete block, and it's just solid. I probably, as far as people up and down the private roads, I really don't see that as being something that's going to be a whole train of people doing that. Somebody might miss the driveway, sure. I think we probably all missed a driveway somewhere and had to turn around. I doubt anybody in this room vandalized the people's property doing it. So what is it going to be, once or twice a week someone might turn around in the private road? Would it be once or twice a month? I don't know, but I just don't see that as a situation that's going to get out of control. And we do have a police force right here. The parking, that's a whole different situation. It has to be contained by the people running the venue. And I'm sure it will be. They're not going to want to deal with angry neighbors. They're not going to want to deal with the police department being upset with them. We were very good neighbors to people here. We were quiet. We kept our parking lot clean and good. We kept our landscaping good. I know that Julie will do the same thing. We sponsored a lot of things in this township for Metamora Days. We were part of the Chamber of Commerce. We hired local people to do our mowing and our snow plowing and all of that kind of stuff. That's what Julie will be doing. And we'll be bringing people in. My employees would go down to the White Horse, and they would go to Brad's, and they use the drugstore, and they use the IGA. Those are the kind of things that will still continue to happen. And there really is a need for this, because if you've ever tried to book a venue, you know it. It's very hard. Very, very hard to book anything. I have a large family, and every time we want to do anything, none of us have a big enough house. We try to find a venue, and we're going to Boulder Point, or we're going to Davison. I would love having something here that my family can use. And as far as property values go, if it were me, I'd rather have a lovely venue there than an empty building. That's going to deteriorate, and it's going to invite vandalism. We've already had vandals there. We've had kids coming from the other neighborhood over, and we dealt with it ourselves. We didn't complain to the police or anything else, but that's going to happen eventually. When they see that there's nobody in that building, it's going to happen. So I think that's way worse for property values than having a lovely, charming venue center there. Thank you for listening.
Chris Morcino, 9474 Maple Lane. I live in Clarkson. I do have the experience of living in an area that's residential. Due west of my home is the Springfield Inn Bar and Event Center, and due south of me is Oscar Larson's Midwest headquarters. They wake me up every morning. I don't have to set an alarm because their dump trucks are slamming by 5:15 a.m. I get it. It has not decreased our property values. Our subdivision property values have grown 18% in the last 3 years. I understand the concern of property values. I made a living doing this. I've been licensed in real estate since November 10th, 1996. So other than admitting I'm old, old, I've been doing this a long time. An empty building, a derelict building with deferred maintenance will lose value of 5 to 8% value per year. That will spread to the neighborhood because, as Karen said, it will invite vandalism. Mr. Walt Sierakowski and I had a long chat about this years ago. Said, Walt, if this building sits here empty, you're gonna have a problem with your hands. I've had this property listed a long time. We've had 0 office inquiries, 0. We've had dog kennels, horse trainers, RV storage and repair, marinas, and the latest, a brewery. They want indoor and outdoor eating. This is the best fit that we saw, and I see this maintaining property values for the neighbors. I really do. Because having this is gonna keep that property value and your assessment values at peak. Thank you.
Just want to say, I feel like you guys go to like a very different kind of weddings than I go to, because I was at a high-end wedding this summer at a golf course, and the only noise people outside heard was us getting in and out of our cars and coming and going, and that was like very low noise. No hooping and hollering out there, no people drinking in the parking lot. I worked in the event industry for 9 years, and often we were setting up our events, which were not fun events, next to fun events. So, we pull in on Friday night, there's a wedding going on, we're setting up next to it. Again, I don't understand where all these fears are coming from, because people going to high-end events in particular are not out looking for stuff to steal. And I live in the village of Metamora, and we have venues in there, and we have venues that don't even have proper parking in any way. And so those folks are walking on the rail trail, they're walking in front of people's houses and stuff. But have we had thefts? I haven't heard of them. I mean, it's certainly a problem what goes on there, but it's not people coming to look to steal your stuff. So I just don't understand, I guess, kind of that line of thinking. I understand the fears, but I just don't know that they would bear out in reality. And as far as like wandering around, I just don't see those things happening. In particular, because this is 7-acre property, something like that. It's sizable enough that people can walk around the parking lot if they want to get away from things, that kind of thing. And I can tell you, there's a huge difference between the venues that have their outdoor space. Like in the village, we have Dove Manor that has a tent. And then we have the Lions Hall, which opens up the doors. The noise from both of those reaches my house, which is by the water tower. So it goes a very long way, but you can be right next to a building like this and not hear the music coming out of it. So it is a very different kind of experience. And it's maybe a very different clientele than those would be. So this is not something where I would expect people coming to town to look to steal things. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? All right.
So no more questions?
I have a few things to address everybody with.
Yes.
Our zoning ordinance allows for conditional rezoning.
Mm-hmm.
Conditional rezoning is by an applicant, it's voluntarily. They come to us, we don't solicit them. They put together a statement of what they're doing, how they're doing it. The conditional rezoning goes to the planning commission, which it did. The planning commission did not make a decision, it was a tie vote. All for and all against equal. It then comes to the township board. The township board has a decision to make on conditional rezoning, whether or not the applicant has the conditions placed forth that justifies and satisfies everybody's needs. Our constituents, our applicants, the township, our master plan. The township board can make that decision a yes or a no. The township board can place conditions on top of the conditions. This event venue still has to go in front of the planning commission for site plan approval if it's passed here tonight. When it gets back to the planning commission, they have to look at all the criteria in the zoning ordinance for that type of venue, event center, to meet the ordinance requirements as far as parking, sound, fencing, sewer and water, and all the concerns that everybody here has mentioned. Adjacent property owners, all of that. So with that being said, the zoning ordinance allows for this hearing, it allowed for the previous hearing, It gives the township board a decision whether or not to accept the conditions the applicant's asking for. And the township board can then make an educated yes, decision, yes or no. Any of the concerns for the building codes, the size of the building with the amount of people in it, the building code's gonna limit that, or you're gonna need a huge building. When you get into the building code, it's gonna have accessibility items for people with handicaps and other disabilities to get to the building. It's gonna have parking restraints. You can't have a venue that's gonna see 300 people and have 50 parking spaces. So there's a lot of checks and balances that have yet to be done, should this pass tonight. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them before the board makes a decision. And back to you.
Okay. Gotta make a decision.
So, I'm gonna read a motion. Is that what you'd like me to? I'll read the motion, and then we'll discuss it.
Are you making the motion?
I'm gonna make the motion by reading it, then somebody can second it. And then, I don't know if you wanna talk more about conditions, if there's more conditions,
Well,
or.
they're gonna do that at the planning.
At the planning? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let me go. This is the motion that I'm making, is a motion to approve the conditional rezoning of the property at 600 West Dryden Road, Metamora, Michigan, 48455, parcel number 015-008-07200, per section 2006 of the Metamora Township zoning ordinance number 23, from a O1 local office to a B2 general business, with conditions listed as the following. 1, a condition that limits permitted use of the site to those currently under the O1 designation, plus event venues. 2, maintenance of the existing buffer and screening surrounding the property, i.e. tree line. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Now we wanna have a discussion, or we discussed it enough?
I've just gotta get it through my brain. Say the last part of that.
You want me to read the 2 conditions, or just the last?
Yeah, the one with the
Number 2.
office one.
A condition that limits permitted use of the site to those currently under O1 designation, plus event venues.
Okay.
2, maintenance of the existing buffer and screening surrounding the property, i.e. tree lines.
Okay, so it doesn't fall under the B2,
It is B2.
but it will be
But not
B2.
really.
But if you're saying that it stays with the conditions on office one, can we?
It would be, so it's technically B2, but it would be permitted to O1 plus event venue.
Right.
Only.
Only. It can't end up being something else
No.
down. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
I just want, my only comment would be, depending on what everybody votes, but I wanna make sure the buffer, the screening, the noise attenuation, cancellation, whatever, I would like that to be taken to the planning commission for review and further discussion. So,
That's in here.
okay, I just wanna make sure it's just not just, if I don't attend that, Ann, I guess you would be the one attending, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, that's my motion, you seconded it, so.
So we'll have a roll call vote. I don't care.
Clausen,
Yes.
Benscoter,
Yes.
Chouinard, yes. Derderian,
Yes.
Clark, yes.
Okay, it passed. I don't have nothing.
You clarified that.
Can I just make a comment about the public comment, or? No. No, maybe supervisor tonight or other members. Is that okay? Yep. Okay, I just wanted to make it clear that, I am an elected official, so I should should be voting on the boards that I sit. And the only reason that I wouldn't vote on anything is if I had some kind of financial connection. So as long as I do not have a financial connection, which I did not at the last zoning board meeting, yes, it was a distant family member, a cousin, but because I have no financial connection whatsoever, then I should be voting on those because I am an elected official that that's part of the job. So I just want to make sure that that makes sense. I'm only here because, like many people, generations of my family.
And our ex-attorney told you to. He's a judge now.
Yeah, we had legal counsel that said I should be, and, you know, it's just, our family, I am part of the Best family. I'm proud to be part of the Best family. For many generations, we have cared about this town. We want conservative values to continue, financial responsibility to continue, so that's why I'm sitting here. I have no other intent whatsoever, so I just want to make that known.
And that's part of her trusteeship, that she has to either sit on the planning commission or this zoning.
And she doesn't have to.
So, I don't know what else to explain.
So, it's part of the tradition.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is that what we're doing?
All in favor?
Aye.
Her property's directly across the street. Her father's property is directly overlooking. And that was laid out. That was a very good motion on Scott's part. You gotta take the time to write a motion before you show up at the meeting.